Good afternoon. I'm excited to host this next session of conversations, and I've got three awesome ladies with me today. My name's Ashley Fisher. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager here at Beck's, and I've been able to work at Beck's for almost 15 years. And so our session is around storytelling, and that's been a big part of my life here at Beck's, is telling stories. And now we've got three amazing ladies who also tell stories in a little bit different way. So if you would please introduce yourself and give a little background about what you do and kind of why you're here today.
All right. Is it all on? Yep. So my name is Katie Sauer. Normally a bit of an anomaly in this industry, but I know I'm not today in that I did not grow up in agriculture. I kind of stumbled into it. So I was a journalism major, which will come back into play here. But while I was in college, I kind of stumbled into sales roles and sales support with Monsanto. And so over the course of my career, I've worked in sales, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in public affairs, I have worked in, what else have I done? Sales, marketing, public affairs. Anyway, all along the way, what I have found is people truly underestimate the power of the words that they use. So today, I run a company called Epiphium, and what we do is we help ag businesses and salespeople figure out how to harness the power of story to build internal clarity within their businesses, but also external demand with customers. So it's a lot of fun to help people think outside the box, especially in this industry where we like to be very logical about how we have conversations. So that's what we do.
All right, thank you. Natalina?
My name is Natalina Sens-Bausch, and I work as the digital director for Successful Farming and Agriculture.com. But my story didn't start with a journalism degree. I was actually studying ag econ at an ag business at Iowa State because I knew I loved questions and finding out the story behind why people do what they do. And Beck's actually became part of my career story at that point when I saw the Why I Farm videos. And they kind of stopped me in my tracks. And I knew that I wanted that sort of storytelling and the power of stories in that way to be a part of my career story. So I actually got to work with Ashley nearly 10 years ago as a Beck's intern. And I didn't go away because I knew part of my story was I had a goal of going to all 50 states by the time I was 25. I think I was 20 or 21 when I came and shared this idea with Ashley. I wasn't near 50 states and I was 20 or 21. And I still can't believe the story that I marched into Ashley's office and said I was going on a year-long 50-state road trip and if she wanted to be part of it. And in the end, it became the Beck's Why I Farm road trip. And I spent a year on the road telling the stories of more than 100 farmers and ranchers through blogs and photography.
You should write more of a story of the behind the scenes of that, because there were so many things that you went through on that road trip, from a car accident to the people that you met, just the more of the nitty gritty of what you got to experience. Not just, you told the stories of others a lot, but I think you have a story within what you did for an entire year. Not many people get to do that. That was really cool.
It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm really thankful for those stories that springboarded me into my current chapter of my story, working for Successful Farming, and the dozens of those families who hosted me, shared their experience with me when I was literally living in a lime green Ford Fiesta, pulling up on strangers' farms that I'd never met. And now they've become treasured friends and trusted sources that I still get to stay in touch with as I write a different sort of story for Successful Farming.
Yep. Mary Pat?
Mary Pat Sass. I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin and then married into a crop farm family in northern Illinois. My journey has kind of been a little different as well. I started out in ag business at college, and then I worked for a technology company. Well, they were like a seed and chemical supplier, but I worked on the tech side of it. And I traveled a lot for work, and once I became a mom, I decided that wasn't going to work well for our family, and for me to be able to help my husband on the farm and really support him, I decided to leave my career, which led to sharing our lives on social media. So I do tell my story through that. But what's really cool through that journey, it evolved into me starting a business of my own. and that business is called Grounded Journals. They're prompted journals for farmers and ranchers to help record their own stories. Because I think it's really important to tell our story to the world and to those around us, not only farmers, but those outside the farming community. But who's the most important people that we tell our story to? It's our family. So that's my goal, is to help families keep their memories and special moments for generations to come.
Now, talk a little bit about that. What is that, and what you've created? Because you have created something that where families can document that. And for many of us farm families, that's not something that we're all really good at, because we just want to keep moving really fast and lives are busy. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, before I do, I have to say, I don't know if you headed up the story of Beck's in the main office there, but that was incredible to walk through and see how the family has kept that history and so many details.
Oh, you're the Experience Center?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. They don't throw away anything.
What was that?
They don't throw away anything.
Yeah.
Natalina remembers. You were helping. They have an archive just of everything.
I mean, just seeing the book of like the seed sales and each variety and like how much was left and what they were oversold on, handwritten. I was like, that is an incredible like relic to have for the future. But anyway, I wanted to make it easy, because when you sit down with a blank piece of paper and try to write about what's happening, it's like, where do you start or where do you stop, right? So my prompted journals are really geared towards helping farmers get brief snapshots of like what's going on in their year on the farm, special things that have happened, big moments, like maybe you put up a new grain bin or switched, bought some more land or rented from a new landlord, like those key moments that kind of might shape the future of your farm. And also, I have versions for farmers that maybe are done farming, the retired guys. It's called the memoir, and it helps them recollect on their years of farming in bite-sized pieces. So it's not just like, it's like you're sitting around the table and recording those stories, but you're actually able to revisit them and remember more details.
In your careers, what has been an aha moment of, man, this was either a great story or maybe something that surprised you about connecting the stories and why it's so important? We all have those moments that kind of stand out in our minds, whether it changed something in our minds or confirmed it. What's one of those moments for you?
I have one that comes to mind, so I can share it, because it's when you said that, it popped into my mind. But recently, after I launched my company, I had a family reach out and say, thank you for giving us this option for recording our story, because they did the memoir with the father-in-law on the farm, or it was the daughter-in-law messaging me, because that's often who I get messages from, are the wives or the daughter-in-laws. And the father-in-law passed away unexpectedly, but they got a lot of his story before he passed, and then they were able to speak to siblings of his like really recently after his unexpected death to get more of the details, and they just were like so thankful. And that wasn't something that I was expecting, but it was just like a wow, this is actually really important, and it's impacting a lot of families.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously I spent a lot of my career kind of working in corporate agriculture, and this industry, like I said earlier, we like to just convince everybody as to that our science is solid and everybody should just believe it. And as anyone in the ag industry knows, with consumers, that just doesn't usually cut it, right? So I remember so many conversations and pulling together all the things to try to help everybody logically understand that things are safe and we don't have to worry about this. And obviously that doesn't usually work. But I will never forget the moment where some coworkers I was with watched a farmer just tell their story to a consumer and help them understand why I use the tools I do and how I use the tools I do. And you could just see everybody's realization that suddenly the consumer understood that this is not a black and white issue. This isn't something that people are trying to cause damage to anything, right? And so that was, for me, something that I knew, but it became really real to see how logic does not work. But the minute you start giving the emotional side of something, why I do it, the trade-offs we all make, because we all know as human beings, we make trade-offs every day. Yep. And so when you can tell a story about that, people just relate to it far more. They don't care about science. They care about emotion. They care about legacy.
Yep. No, you go ahead.
One story that comes to mind is just how interconnected stories can be, and that's really what gives some of them their power. I'll try to give the SparkNotes version of there is a man in the ag communication space that has really been a cheerleader for a lot of people, and he's very good at connecting people and introducing people. And he's someone who introduced me to a farmer in Ohio that I visited on the YI Farm road trip. And so this farmer I didn't know from Adam, other than a recommendation from a man who emailed me who had also never met in my real life. And I pulled up on her farm. I spent several days on her farm. She volunteered her friends and neighbors to share their YI Farm story with me. I stayed in touch with this woman, shared her story. She became a true friend of mine and a mentor through several organizations that we served in together. As I spent hours and hours on the road, both with the YI Farm road trip and in other chapters of life, she's been someone I've spent countless hours on the phone with, working through life's ups and downs. She has been vulnerable in sharing her story with me, and that's built trust, and I've shared my story with her. And over the last 10 years, she was one of my first phone calls when my family experienced a tragedy. When her daughter was looking for a job, I said, why doesn't she come freelance for me at Successful Farming? And the ways our stories have interconnected, we were actually, the man who emailed us and connected us 10 years ago, her daughter and I were able to all meet in person for the first time last year at a conference in person. And it was just really a testament to the power of sharing stories with each other. And we don't know what the next chapter is to be written in our story. When I pulled onto Jane Marshall's farm in Ohio 10 years ago, I was there to write a story and take some photos to post online. I had no idea how that relationship and the stories that we shared together would shape the rest of my life.
When we started the YI Farm movement, it was to honor the American farmer. And it actually started really as a marketing campaign. But what it really became was so much more than that, where we were telling stories, but they connected to so many other people. They could see themselves in that story that was being told. Remember, it was the nostalgia that they could feel when they were going through and reading and viewing those videos. And so there's just so much power in telling our stories. Talk a little bit about, Katie, from your perspective, working more from, with other companies, and what's the biggest hurdle that you see that companies are going through? What's the biggest hurdle that you see when telling stories?
I think I've said it every time I've picked up this microphone, is so much data. We generate so much data in this industry, and farmers run their operations off of so much data. And it's important. We all know that that's how we make decisions. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of emotion in farming, right? I mean, yes, we all understand farmers need information. Farmers want information. Farmers need to share information with the broader community. But there are generational transitions that are happening. There is a lot of great things that are happening now as new technologies are being brought to the table to make agriculture more friendly than to the earth than how consumers perceive it to be today. And that is where I see the biggest gap, is understanding that we know we're doing really good things in this industry, but we're not telling the story well externally. And it frustrates me because it's been probably 15 years since I was working in public affairs, and we were saying the same thing then, and we're continuing to struggle with that. But I think there's opportunity out there. It's a challenge when only 2% of us work in this industry, and yet what we do impacts 100% of the population. So we have to be better at doing that. I do think the best people to be doing that are farmers, because even though people might be skeptical of our food industry, they love farmers, to your point. And so I always encourage people, let your customers tell your story. Let them share their own, because we just have to continue to get past this logic, this data mindset that we have in a very scientifically driven industry.
From a digital perspective and being in the media, knowing that, trying to tell the stories, get past some of this data to where you create that connection and emotion, where are you seeing people connect the most with that information?
I think with something that resonates with them personally, and something that's going to stop your thumb is maybe something that is going to stop my scrolling is going to look a little bit different. And including that personal nugget, the personal touch, something that's maybe a little bit vulnerable or shares some emotion, pulls at the heartstrings, that can be scary to share in the moment, but that really can be the thing that opens the door to build a connection with someone, at first digitally, but then can transform into something even more meaningful beyond that.
Mary Pat, from the content that you're sharing from your own family and the things that you're going through, what do you see that people connect with, from an engagement side? You can look at the data on the back end and see what they're connecting with. Where do you see the most connection at?
It's really hard to tell because I think sometimes the videos that I put out that I think are just whatever, or I'm like, I don't know what to share today. This is something in my camera roll. I'll just put it out there. Sometimes those are the ones that really take off with the masses, I guess you could say. But I know that my core audience, the people who are there for me and not just like scrolling by and finding me randomly, connect when I do share vulnerably, or I share from the heart, share a struggle that I've overcome or a way that inspires them to get to the next chapter in their life where they really want to be, or encourage them to make a change that they've been thinking about. And I think that I would say that kind of content and inspiring that way is what I enjoy creating the most, and I think what my audience looks for.
If someone is thinking about doing the same thing of creating content and sharing their story, that can be intimidating on such a large platform, where you can have some of the hate comments or negative comments. What advice do you give of someone who's maybe considering that and getting into that space?
I could talk about this all day.
I know.
But I will echo something that Jenna, my friend that's also on social media, said earlier today, and that's just start. You're never going to have a perfect plan. And if you don't start, you're always going to wonder what if. And then for me, I think it's consistency. If you want to build a following or build a platform, you need to show up, and you need to treat it, if you eventually want to treat it like a business, it will pay like a business if you continue to do that. It takes years and years to build that. But I've taken it seriously now, and as far as like the hate comments and stuff goes, that I don't know if that ever really gets easy, because it does kind of bug you, especially like when people attack your character or whatever. They're picking apart every little thing that you're doing. But I think over the years, I've just learned that the people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter. And it's like really thinking about the core people in your life. If they're telling you something, then maybe think about listening to it. But if it's some random online, one thing I like to do is throw on my prom dress and like hop into tractors and do the chores and just totally like clap back and make a joke out of the people that are getting to me.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think something to add on that, because to your point, a lot of people are scared to get started. And I know when I talk to customers who I'm encouraging them, like, you need to be out there, you need to be talking about what you're doing. What I always remind everybody is, if there's one positive thing that TikTok has brought to the world, it's that nobody expects perfection, and short little snippets of things are totally fine. So I'm like, you don't have to worry. It's not back in the days 20 years ago when all this stuff started, where you were trying to get professional grade stuff that you were putting out on social media to share with consumers. We don't need that anymore. Just be real. And in fact, to your point, some of the stuff that goes viral for you is the stuff that you're just looking at the camera roll being like, what's worth it today? People want to see reality, and that's always what I tell people. Just start and be honest.
TikTok is such a unique platform. Hannah convinced me, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. No, not 5 years. You've only been here like 4 years. Time flies by. Convinced me that we should do TikTok as a company. And I was like, I don't know how that's going to look. And but I put a lot of trust and faith, and we've created, just a platform with for a company to have over 60,000 followers. But it's about the storytelling, and Hannah and Kate do such a great job of bringing authentic content from Beck's. And the ones that we see the most response from are like the nostalgic. We're showing the history of Beck's and just the pictures from years ago, and that's when we see the most views and engagement. But sometimes you get the weird video, and you're like, man, how does I don't understand.
Why? Yeah, I don't either.
Tell me about when you think about storytelling, someone that you look up to or a company that is doing it really well, and you don't have to say Beck's.
So is this a trick question?
You're doing a great job.
There are other people doing really great job.
Do you have one? Well, the reason I am hesitating is because the only answer I am coming up with is Beck's. And I think it's because you are doing a nice job of telling the farmer's story, right, versus your own. And even when it is things about the Beck family, it is about the farm, and it's about nostalgia, and it's what I think people feel and like to see, and what those people who are from rural America know that rural America is like. And I just think too, I was even just say, I look at things from a whole brand perspective, and I mean, Beck certainly understands experience, and that this is about more than just selling you a product, right? We want you to be running a better operation. We've got your back. We want you to be successful. So I realize it's an easy way out, but that is my answer.
I did not intend for you to say that.
I echo that. Like, even through the years of like the Why I Farm campaign, that's like something that's resonated with me for years. But this is a hard one. I think I look up to a lot of other content creators in the ag space, especially like the Sharkey family that was here earlier today. They are a huge inspiration, and they've inspired a lot of other young people to continue down that path. Brand-wise, I think it's just really great when a brand tries to connect with their audience. I'm gonna get an eye roll from you. Quick Trip. You guys need a brand to look at that just connects really well with the Midwest audience. The gas station Quick Trip. They do a great job.
It is the best gas station.
It is.
I'm having a hard time coming up with a specific individual or brand, but I echo what both these ladies have been saying, is that my favorite brands to consume online, and I'm chronically online, are the people who are authentic. So I can't copy what Quick Trip is doing. I can't. If I stood up here and tried to say the same jokes Rob Sharkey does, nobody would laugh. But it's the people who are being authentic to who they are and showing up as them true selves online are the most powerful.
It's not always easy. So what keeps you motivated to continue doing the jobs that you're doing?
I think for me, it's definitely my kids. They see what I do every day, and I think it's continuing to be like a leader in the space and telling our story so that they can be inspired someday. And also just the feedback that I get from people. And I have to share this example because it was such a good one. I had a young woman email me and say, it was like a piece of content I put out a couple years ago, flag testing for precision planting. She saw my idea online, took that and made it into her SAE project for FFA, did really well, like one state or something, and then decided because of that experience to go to college for, I don't remember if it was ag business or agronomy, but it was something in the ag field. And like that, I think those stories and hearing that kind of feedback is what motivates me to keep sharing. Because it's like anything that I put out there, yeah, some of it's silly, some of it's for entertainment purposes only, but it's really truly inspiring others to go after what they are dreaming to do someday.
I would echo that. When a story you've told, it might be a middle chapter for you, but it's a beginning chapter for somebody else in their story. And you can see how that seed was planted, whether it be somebody who reaches out and says, I kind of like what you're doing. Can I job shadow you? Or can I, see if I can shape my career in your direction? Or I'll never forget sitting on a back porch in Kentucky with a farm family. And I was just asking, why do you farm? And prompted some serious family conversation, and had an opportunity to be with the father and the son one-on-one after the family conversation. And the dad said, I've never heard my son be that articulate about what's going on the farm. And I'm just really confident in what he's doing. And the son told me later, my dad's never, said he was proud of me or been that outspoken about how much he loves me and loves having me back on the farm. And I might have been just a girl living in a lime green Ford Fiesta and showed up on their doorstep. But I think I planted a seed that day to have some family conversation, and just those moments that you're spurring something, even after your story's done, after your stories are not intersecting anymore, that their story is continuing in a unique way because of the influence you've had on each other.
I'd say for me, there's really two sides of the coin for me. One is professionally. I do think as you look at these younger farmers in their 20s, their 30s, the way they're making decisions, the decisions they're being asked to make, the way they're running their operations is very different from what people, even my age, what we were taught to do and to sell to them and to communicate with them. And so I think what keeps me going on a professional side of things is that they deserve something different. They deserve something that matches their style and how they collaborate with each other and how they communicate. So that keeps me going because I think the younger generation deserves it. But then on the personal side, as I mentioned in my intro, I didn't grow up in ag. I grew up in rural America, but I saw these farmers and I didn't know what they were doing. I had no idea. And obviously I stumbled in, and 25 years later, I'm still here. I have fallen in love with this industry. I know what farmers do, and nothing breaks my heart more than when I sit down, even with my family who knows that I work in this industry and knows that things that they see are not true, but the misinformation that's out there. And so that's where kind of personally always looking and finding and challenging people. Because like I said, I think farmers are the best people to tell their story. So how do we do that in a way that we're not just talking to ourselves, but truly breaking out into the consumer space and helping them understand what we do and how hard we work?
And it's going to be so much more important as the industry continues to consolidate. There's going to be less farmers, and so as we continue to tell our stories, it's going to be so important that we connect with all of the consumers. And but it's not easy to do that, and you have to be vulnerable. But I think back to I've done not nearly as many interviews as what Natalina has done in her career, but there's been a lot of really amazing moments when you can hear those stories and share your own story within that. Moments where I'm like, I was able to, I call them God moments, where God was there in that interview and in that conversation. We were both meant to be there. So as you're sharing that story about that son and his dad, and you were meant to be there in that moment, and God put you there so you could provide that opportunity. One thing that we've learned lately is that the word proud is something that doesn't get shared enough between saying you're proud of someone. And many times I think it's even telling your parent that you're proud of them. And I think those are missed opportunities. Okay, so we have just a couple more moments left. I would love if you could just, thinking about that there's going to be less farmers as we continue to go, as the years come on. What do you want folks to really walk away with? If they just stepped up, they haven't heard the rest of the conversation, what do you want them to understand when it comes to telling their story? I don't care who goes first.
I'll go. I'll just keep building on what I've been saying. I think they need to understand your passion for what you do, for your farm, for your family, for your soil. They need to understand that farmers care more about their land than they do, right? And I think the other piece too is also telling the stories of your family. And yes, we understand a lot of the things that consumers see today. They're concerned about their children. Talking about how you have children too, you understand the trade-offs they're making and why you know that what you do is what's providing the most secure future and the safest and healthiest future for your children, I think is one of the best things that farmers can be doing.
I think for everyone in the audience, telling your story is going to be different for each of you. And some of it might be behind a mic on stage. Other people, it might be behind your phone on social media. Other people, it might just be who you're sitting next to on the plane, or who's in line at the coffee shop with you. And how you compare that or measure that with other people can be a distraction from the mission of sharing your story and your passion. That is really what's more powerful than how many followers you have on Instagram or how many people are in the seats that you're speaking to, that making that personal connection with your story, I think is really where you have the power to make a difference.
I'll take it a different route because I agree wholeheartedly with what you both said. I think along the lines of having less farms or less farmers, recording our stories for those future generations is going to continue to be really, really important, because I know a lot of landlords that we have are older, or their family is disconnected from the farm and there's really no one else that's there. What's going to happen when those landlords die? And maybe might be far-fetched, but maybe, just maybe, if they were able to read their grandparents' story, they would care a little more. And I think that might be some way that could be impactful if you record your story and you're able to share it with those generations that continue to be more and more removed.
Several years ago, I recorded my grandparents. I did like a Why Farm interview kind of, and I recorded them just asking them all sorts of questions. I wish I would have done it again to record more conversation, but it is, you just don't get that, and then they're gone. So to be able to keep those stories going, it's great. Okay, any questions from the audience? Anything that... Mike was raising his hand, so I thought... Okay, ladies, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will continue to watch all of your stories unfold, whether it's on social media or through your company. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for being part of our story.